Good evening. I'd like to call to order the special meeting for the Lacey Township Board of Education, May 2nd, 2019. With that, we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this hearing was given by publication in the Asbury Park Press newspaper on Friday, April 26, 2019, and by posting this notice in the Forked River and Lenoka Harbor post offices, the Ocean County Library, the Lacey branch, and by filing a copy with the Lacey Township Clerk as required by the Open Public Meetings Law. Roll call for attendance, please.
Mr. Horvath.
Here.
Mrs. DeSensa.
Here.
Mr. Riggs. Here. Mrs. DeBlas. Mrs. Downing. Mr. Morandi.
Here.
Mr. Giordano.
Here.
We have a quorum.
At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Clark for superintendent comments.
Good evening. Welcome and thank you for joining us. So I'm going to start by just reviewing the purpose of tonight's meeting, which is to address unfinished business from the April 15th board meeting. So the first resolution,
I don't,
closer.
you might want to adjust the volume on all these because it's not as sensitive. Okay.
Is that better? Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Did everybody hear what I just said, or would you like me to repeat? Good? Okay. I'll repeat anyway. So I welcomed everybody, and I stated that the purpose of tonight's meeting is to address unfinished business from the April 15th board meeting. So there are two resolutions on tonight's agenda. The first resolution relates to the reduction in force of paraprofessionals. So for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to outline what a reduction in force is, also known as a RIF. It's a legal process by which a school district must follow when it is inclined to either eliminate or substantially reduce a category of staff positions. It does not mean that all staff members who receive a RIF notice are going to lose their jobs. So I'm just going to say that again. It does not mean that all staff members who receive a RIF notice, a reduction in force letter, all the same thing. It does not mean that they're going to lose their jobs. Last month's resolution to RIF up to 120 paraprofessionals was tabled. And it was tabled for further discussion and review by the Board of Education. So it's really, really important for me, again, to clarify that while last month's motion, resolution, I should say, to RIF 120 paraprofessionals did not mean that 120 paraprofessionals were losing their jobs. Can everybody hear me? Okay. In reality, the plan was to eliminate 35 full-time paraprofessional positions, create 42 new part-time positions, and restructure the 43 per diem paraprofessional positions that were already in place. Does that make sense so far? Okay. In reality, what it meant was the elimination of 35 full-time paraprofessional positions, the creation of 42 new part-time positions, and the restructuring of 43. But that was in the past, so I'm going to move on. Since that board meeting, we got together again, and we diligently worked on alternatives to the tentative budget as it was presented on March 18th. So if you recall, we were in the auditorium. Mr. DeGeorge presented the tentative budget. Tonight's resolution reduces the number of paraprofessional RIFs, reduction in force, to 65. But again, This does not mean that all 65 paraprofessional positions are being eliminated. In reality, the plan now is to eliminate 17 full-time paraprofessional positions in kindergarten and preschool, create 16 new part-time positions in kindergarten and preschool, and restructure the 43 per diem paraprofessional positions. So, as previously mentioned, and we've mentioned it numerous times, our intention was never to affect students or programs when addressing budget deficits. However, the alternatives that we must now implement include budgetary cuts and reductions in various areas, including but not limited to, well, I should say including, and I'll get to the limited to in a minute, teaching staff positions, facility staff positions, curriculum, security, and athletics. So when I say that we revisited the topic, went back to the drawing board, had discussions for review, this is where we are this evening, and that is why the resolution that appears on the agenda reads up to 65 paraprofessionals. Excuse me. On Monday, May 6th, I'm sure most of you know, we will present the final budget at the budget hearing that is scheduled here in the lecture hall at 6:00 p.m. So I know that there are probably some questions. We will leave those for public comments, but I'm going to encourage you, if you have a specific question, to please reach out to myself, Mr. DeGeorge, Mr. Giordano, Mr. Decker. We would be more than happy to answer questions if what I've just explained does not make sense. At this time, we have another resolution on tonight's agenda, and I'm going to ask Mr. DeGeorge to please discuss that resolution that appears tonight.
Thanks, Dr. Clark. Good evening, everyone. The second resolution, as you know, relates to approval of a project to replace the track here at the high school. For those who may have been in attendance at our September 17th, 2018 board meeting, you'd have heard me talk about school district budgets. You would have heard me tell you what the components of a school district budget are, how they work, how they're managed. And in that discussion, you would have heard me say that there are three major parts of a school district budget. The first is the general operating budget, by far the biggest, the budget which really operates our school district. Next is the budget that relates to grants, those NCLB, IDEA funds that we get from federal sources. Third is the debt service budget, that where we collect money and repay our debt that we borrowed as a district from taxpayers. In the general operations budget, there are various types of revenue and various types of expenditures. So there's tax levy, there's state aid, there's fund balance, and then there's something called capital reserve. A special fund, which is, and I can't say this more clearly, distinct and separate from the operating budget. The money from capital reserve, according to the law, which is NJAC 6A23A-14.1, it says that it's supposed to be used only for facilities projects which are included in the district's long-range facilities plan. So money that the board has been able to position for capital projects is unable, absolutely illegal for us to use to balance our operating budget. I know we've had some questions about that in the past, so I'm hoping that this puts that question to rest. So the money for the track project tonight, the money for the boiler project 2 weeks ago, all of that money is coming from the capital reserve fund and could not in any way have been used for the operating budget. Does that help?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other comments,
Okay.
President Giordano.
All right. With that, I'll open to board comment. I'll start with Board Member Horvath.
I hope that the explanation you got put things in perspective so everybody could understand exactly what was attempted to be done in this very difficult time and what's been done. But let me say this, and hopefully if I say anything that any of my fellow board members or superintendent feel is incorrect, please stop me. My intent from the time I first heard of the budget cuts and the problems that we were going to have was first and foremost to protect the educational process and the students. That's my first goal all the time. Secondly is the taxpayers, and then thirdly are our employees, the teachers union. My first concern when I heard about it was our special needs children and the paraprofessionals who assist them on a one-on-one basis. One of my biggest goals from day one, from moment one, was to protect that to the extent that I could, because I thought it was that important. My first thoughts on it, unfortunately, did not pan out. I'm new to this business. I'm not used to collective bargaining, and I didn't understand that we couldn't just ask the employees to make what I thought was a common sense decision to put the students first in that matter above contractual requirements that we as a board cannot change. Once there's a contract, we're obligated to honor the terms of that contract unless the other party is willing to make a change. It's my understanding, however, with the changes that we've done, based on the preliminary looks of where things are and where seniority is, and I don't know that this is absolutely true, but I'm going to place my vote tonight based on the fact that it looks like we've gotten it either there or as close as possible, that the paraprofessionals who are full-time, who are one-on-ones with our special needs children, for the most part that I can see, are going to return to their positions where they're at with the students they're at, which is a very important part of what we did. I can't say for sure that's going to be the case because, again, I don't control contract law and I don't control the seniority agreements, but that's been my goal all along. I wanted to protect those children, and I fought for that to the best that I possibly could. As far as the other cuts go, at this point, we tried to spread it around the best that we could. Please understand, 80%, roughly, and Mr. George might be able to clarify that for me, of the operating budget of a school district is contractual obligations. Basically, it goes to the contracts with the teachers' unions, et cetera, and cannot be changed midterm. The only time that can be changed is during a contractual negotiation. So that really ties your hands to much of what you can do. So that was my thought process as I was up here, what I believe, fighting for the kids, and especially the special needs children. That was something that was extremely important to me, and I was ready to walk away from this table and pull the plug on the whole thing if I couldn't do that. I feel that to the extent that we can, we've done that. I'm hoping that it goes exactly as I want it to go in that extent. The other cuts, I think at this point, some of them are by attrition, if I'm understanding correctly. And I think there are other cuts, although somewhat painful to somebody, in all cases. Face it, if you're the person who, whatever it is being cut, you're going to feel it. But I think that they put the least pain possible. And I wish we could go back to the state and get the money back that they're giving to Lakewood, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that's my opinion. But we can't, at least not at this point. So I just want to put that out there, and hopefully that explains things a little bit. And if there's more questions, if I'm allowed to entertain the answer to it, I would certainly try to.
Thank you, Mr. Horvath. Mrs. Downing? Can you, microphone, you have to make sure it's on. You might have to move it closer.
There you go. First of all, I want to apologize for being a little late tonight. Second of all, what Frank said, he really put it in a nutshell. Many of you at the last meeting, your comments really made, as I was sitting here, made me think more and more about, you brought up several times about the children not being with the paras that they've been with for so long. And that really started hitting home. And that's when we took a break and we decided, let's table this, let's go back to the drawing board and see what we can come up with. Yes, there are some cuts here. that the elimination of 4.5 teacher positions probably will be attrition, right, Dr. Clark? Custodial position through attrition. This, to me, is the best we can do right now. Again, I can't emphasize enough, we're in this position because of that bill from from Governor Murphy, and we really need to be. And I hope after the last meeting, I implored all of you to start writing and calling the governor, and I hope you started doing that, because I continue to do it almost every day, sending letters, and now that we have his phone number, that's kind of easier to just give a call. So I implore you, please, keep doing that, keep doing it, because this year. We're going to be in the same rut next year. It's not getting any better. So we really have to fight for what's ours. Like Frank said, here's Lakewood getting all this money, and here we are scrounging to get positions and to keep our staff and our powers so that our children get the best education they can. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Downing. Regina, I'll go to you. Ms. DeSenza.
Okay, thank you. This is a very, very sad time for the Lacey School District, and there are many financial factors that have led to today's problems, and it is no one person's fault. This town is changing, and perhaps I am one of few people that know 10 years ago our student population was 5,100 and anticipated to grow. Now in 2019, our September enrollment is projected to be under 4,000. Anyone that can do a little math knows that current staffing is unrealistic to support those numbers, and state aid definitely cannot support current staffing. Unfortunately, debt in this district is an issue. Debt payments must be made for years to come, no matter how many students we have. A 20-year debt is a 20-year debt. There are no shortcuts to paying it back, and the bonds have been refinanced to make the payments a little lower. Unfortunately, the referendum from the solar project had predicted that enough revenue would be generated by the solar renewable energy credits to cover the debt payments. This did not happen. When the SREC revenue tanked, that left a big hole. Your tax dollars now plug that big hole from the drop in SREC prices. This, folks, is reality. The SRECs dropped from a projected $1,000 each to just recently $212. That's an $800 drop. Last month, a bond payment of $1.8 million was made, and that is just one of 3 annual payments the district has to make. Lacey School District can no longer afford all our employees and programs. This is a very sad fact, and the options are very few. As Dr. Clark stated, people are welcome to discuss any financial issues with us, and I'm always available to anyone. And if I can't answer your questions, then I will get you answers. And I also keep a paper copy of the comprehensive annual financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeSenza. Mr. Riggs?
I don't think I'm going to be able to say it any better than Frank and Linda and Regina. I'm sure Nick and Sean both have things they'd like to say too. So I'm not going to bother getting in front of them with that stuff. What I want to do is I just want to thank the lacrosse team. This is actually from last month. On April 21st, Forked River Mountain Coalition had a cleanup. I don't know who invited them or how they got there, but the lacrosse team went out, and the president, vice president of Forked River Mountain Coalition wanted to thank them for everything they did. They did about 3 hours worth of work in 15 minutes. They loaded up a huge dumpster with a bunch of old concrete that was on the side of the woods and stuff. So I don't know who organized that out there or who knows about that, but thank you, lacrosse team, for what you did.
Mr. Morandi?
Thank you. Just, everyone's going to say the same thing. Listen, we do not want to lay people off. We don't want to cut benefits. Unfortunately, with the state cuts, 11% increase in medical benefits, which is close to $2 million. Even though during negotiations, teacher gave a concession from going from one benefit to another, if they didn't do that, we'd be talking another $1 million that we would have a shortfall.
So even concessions that we did during contract negotiations, medical benefits are definitely going to hurt us for the next couple of years. You know, sometimes we hear 11%, sometimes we hear 15%, sometimes we hear close to 20% increases on medical benefits. So I'm a Lacey chatter guy. I see these things. All I want to say is, when someone posts something in Lacey chatter, I don't want to use the thing fake news, but no, if you have questions, contact either the board office, our phone numbers and our emails, the Board of Ed, we get them all the time, okay? We're available, okay? Since the last few meetings that we've been discussing this is a 3 to 5 day a week. It's 5 to 7 days for the board office, but for the Board of Ed members, we're dealing with this 3 to 5 days to look to find more savings so we can save more jobs. So probably all this week, we've been a couple hours a day discussing ways to save some money to try to change a couple of things that we did. That's why we have this new resolution. So once again, we don't want to do this. Unfortunately, our hands are tied. I'm glad we got the track straightened out about capital improvements. Has nothing to do, a track, a boiler, has nothing to do with anybody's job. So, thank you. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Morandi. Rather than err on the side of redundancy, you know, I'll just say this. In the last few meetings that we had, when the public came out, I think the one thing that needs to be understood by all of you in this audience is that this Board of Education listened. We went back to the table. We had more discussions. We were able to try to find what I believe is a solid solution to a very unfortunate set of circumstances. I believe Ms. DeSenza was just telling me that over 400 students sat on the Capitol steps in New Jersey today from Toms River. So when people don't think their vote makes a difference in an election, let this be a call to notice that it does make a difference. You know, your governor, your Senate president, they're the ones that handed down S2. They're the ones that are responsible for giving Lakewood $15 million on top of $15 million that they already have, and it makes no sense. And we're the ones that are having to deal with this very unfortunate situation. I think that we've done a great job working together to spread out what we're going to discuss tonight, what Dr. Clark discussed with you earlier. I think this spreads the cuts amongst the entire, call it school organization. It affects everybody. And, you know, Mr. Horvath said it best. You know, we have three responsibilities up here. The first is to the students, the second is to the taxpayer, the third is to our employees. Nobody likes to lay people off. Nobody likes to riff people. But unfortunately, in today's world, it happens. Happens in my business. It's happened to me before. So I just want you to understand that. I want you to know that we heard you, we listened to you, and that's about all I have to say in regards to my comments. With that, I'd like to, before I open it up to public comment, I'd like to see a show of hands for everybody that would like to speak tonight, just so we can get a gauge on how many people would like to come up. Okay, great. So with that, I'll open the floor to public comment. If you could please come up and state your name and address at the podium.
Evening. I worked a crazy shift. Patrick, my son. I don't want you looking at me tonight.
That's okay. I'm writing your name down, sir.
I want you to look at him as I talk. It's all good. My son's paraprofessionals, Miss Miller, she's somewhere up there. Patrick, say hi. Patrick, say hi. Say hi.
Hi.
Wave. My son has a lot of issues. Him being communicating, kind of walking around as you've seen him, walking up and down steps. It's because of people like Miss Miller up there. I find it, even though you cut it down, I find it appalling that, you know, these are the victims
Dad. Bye.
of your cuts.
Hey.
My son is very attached. You know, kids with special needs, when they latch on to their aids like that, they, move leaps and bounds. You know, and even during the summer, the little break my son has, he regresses just a little bit.
Daddy.
So, you know, the risk to him losing his paraprofessional terrifies parents like myself.
Down.
He's not going to go anywhere. Stay still. You know, I understand budgetary issues, but just out of curiosity, when your chief finance officer played with the numbers, you know, you cut it down to so many jobs. What would be the increase on us residents to save those jobs? The increase, if there was an increase in taxes, what would the increase be? Did anybody look at that to save those jobs? What is it? I haven't heard it talked about
Sure.
one iota.
Yep. Hi, Patrick.
Say hi,
How are you? My
Patrick.
name's Patrick. How are you? Yes, actually, sir, we have spoken about that at every budget meeting. And the answer
Well,
is,
the current one with the change in figures.
the impact on taxes is zero, because the board has already exercised the full extent to which it could increase property taxes under the current structure. So there is no means for us in the current structure to increase the amount of property taxes we could raise for our budget. So the answer is that what happened between the last meeting and this meeting had nothing to do with property taxes at all.
So, you know, I know people hate people that talk about increases. You know, a small, let's say 0.1, would that save jobs? A minuscule
so I'll-
increase to save jobs.
I will say this, two things. First, I'm just going to repeat myself. The board is unable to raise taxes
Daddy.
1 penny more than it's raising for next year. That's just the way the law works. But the other thing is, of course, the more money the district is able to get, the better off the district will be. But regarding property taxes, I'm hoping I say it clearly enough. There is no ability that the board has to raise beyond the 2% it has already raised.
All right, just curious. Who's up for a re-election next year?
Why?
Okay. Just want to say to know who to be honest. When these people lose their jobs, you know.
Really isn't a job, we don't get paid.
Well, I understand how it works. It's just, I said these people lose a job. I know where.
More than welcome to run, as is everybody else.
Yeah.
And we welcome everybody.
Well, I think probably will be popular this year. Say goodbye, Patrick.
Bye.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment?
Hello. I first want to start off by saying thank you for going back and relooking at the budget and trying to figure out better ways and improving this situation. It's a horrible situation regardless. But my question is,
Excuse me, can you just state your name, please, so we know who you are?
oh, I'm sorry, Jessica Lotito.
Thank you.
Frank said when he made his comment that it's your assumption that all of the one-on-ones should be returning with their current child. That does affect my child because he's been with his para for 5 years now. Now, there was rumors that the ones who were going to be bought back were based on seniority. So how is that? Is it one-on-ones or is it seniority?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna do it, because you had already, so the, can you guys hear me? Is it like working? I'll try to, so the contract says that we have to, in a RIF situation, we have to hire back by seniority.
Okay.
Now, one thing that this entire board looked at very carefully was consistency and continuity. Now, while that might not be 100%, and nothing's ever perfect, I believe that we are doing a very good job to maintain as much consistency and continuity as we can. That was very important, I think, to all of us, and we've discussed it. And I don't know if you want to add to that, Dr. Clark?
Well, I was going to say, I was going to reiterate what you just said, Mr. Giordano, that, all right, I'm just going to talk very loud. Better? Okay. The mics are not working, I'm just going to talk loud.
They're working.
Okay. Or I just have to talk louder.
Find them and then bring them up, otherwise we're getting feedback.
He's injured, he's not 100%.
But you still did a great job setting up, Tom, so thank you. So let me just reiterate what Mr. Giordano said. Due to contractual obligations, there are limitations, but we are going to work diligently, and we are going to take every aspect of IEPs into consideration, as we always have. We're going to work closely with our Director of Special Services, our supervisors, to maintain that continuity to the best of our ability.
Okay, so you're actually going to take a look at the IEPs?
Oh,
and
we
see
have
who
to.
has a
Absolutely.
one-on-one
We're in the
and
process
how
of
many
doing.
years they've been with them?
Absolutely. We're in the process of doing that right now.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Evan Keats, and this is Tyler. Most of the paras know Tyler. Tyler's got a couple disabilities, although you wouldn't know. He loves sports. He's always running around. His para, Miss D'Amico, is fantastic. Because of Miss D'Amico and because of Tyler, I don't think she has to join a gym. She's gotten a hell of a workout from him. My concern, and it's somewhat two-pronged, but my one concern with the paras and laying off, and I understand that IEPs are considered. Do you give any special consideration to the fact that dealing with him, it can be exhaustive? He's running around on the floor. They have to crawl after him. There are times she tells me about the exhaustive approach that has to be gone into somebody like him. So I would like that to be taken into account. I understand there's certain laws and contractual agreements. I understand all that. I just want to make sure that the things that are maybe overlooked, like being in a physically active situation for somebody like Tyler, is considered. My other question, the other prong, you paint a dismal picture for the future of Lacey schools. If Lakewood consistently gets an extra $15 million on top of $15 million, and that's what we're seeing going, is Lacey Township doing anything to mitigate that for the future as far as business plans? What is being taken into consideration aside from just the educational approach and thinking outside the box?
So that's a great question, and I'll answer, and I don't know if you want to add. We're constantly looking at different ways that we can bring revenue into the district. For example, we're in the process of finishing up plans for a student exchange program to see if there are students interested in coming to the Lacey Township School District. We're currently accepting tuition-based students. For example, I just received a phone call from Mr. Brandis just yesterday about a student interested in coming to Lacey Township High School because of our College Academy. Our College Academy is something that is unique to us. And those are just a few examples. We're constantly having a conversation amongst all of us on different ways to bring revenue into the district. And so that's a constant conversation. I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, Dr. Clark said it best. I mean, if you look at this and the positions we sit in up here, a lot of us have many years of business experience. So if you look at the school system as a revenue generation vehicle, there are limited ways that you can do that. And we've discussed, and I think ad nauseum again, ways to do that. And we're always trying to kick around ideas. And there's, you know, there's a few, but when you talk about the magnitude of $4.7 million or 447, whatever it is, $4.5 million, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So people have talked about ads on school buses. Okay, it might be $30,000. You know, if you looked at actually improving our facilities to, you know, the track facility to a point where you can host a state meet, that's another $37,000. When you talk about the exchange student program, that's, you know, several thousand per student. You bring in 16,000 per student. You bring in as many as you can. You know, if we could somehow find a way to create some kind of really specialized special needs facility on our campus, which we've talked about, like Lakewood's doing, maybe we can get some of that money. We kick around a lot of ideas. You know, it's just really difficult to make up the deficit that we're faced with. And for your information, I still have to do my day. Karen's sitting in the audience. I'll be in Cedar Creek one day next week. Ms. DeSenza spent the entire day with the Paras last week, I believe, or 2 weeks ago? Monday. So, you know, I'm excited to go. And listen, we've said it time and time again. I know it's an extremely challenging job. It takes a lot out of you. And the people that do those jobs are, quite frankly, in my eyes, amazing. You know, just amazing individuals.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more. We just hope that special consideration is given. And think about people like Tyler. And you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Good evening. My name is Deepa Hujan, and I live on Center Street. I have a few questions. How much will this new cut save, or the restructuring of the cut as for last month's?
So, last month, the cuts added up to the $1.1 million that we needed to balance the budget. Tonight, the cuts add up to $1.1 million to balance the budget. What happened was that we took some of the cuts that we made in the paraprofessional world and put them back into the budget, and in their place, we made cuts, as Dr. Clark said, in athletics, in regular teaching programs, in facilities, in curriculum, in professional development. So,
Can you elaborate on those?
sure, absolutely. So, and you'll see if you come next Monday night that we put back over $400,000 of benefits that we were planning to eliminate from paraprofessionals that we were going to change from full-time to part-time. So that's back in the budget because those positions are going to stay full-time positions. We created, as Dr. Clark said, a number of new part-time paraprofessional positions, and we added about $90,000 back to the budget for that. To do that, though, we had to eliminate almost $200,000, $190,000 worth of teacher salaries, $40,000.
Of those, how many are special ed teachers?
Zero.
These are non-special ed.
Are
Right.
there special ed teachers that are going to be eliminated now?
That is not in the...
Mr. Hayes?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Hayes? Does he teach three
I
special ed classes in the high school?
Can't discuss personnel matter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we-
can't get that specific.
Okay.
Right, but I can tell you that the way it is drawn up right now, these are general education teacher positions. I don't know if I could say it any plainer than that. a custodial position, as I said, the related benefits to those positions, some reduction in security, as Dr. Clark said. We were planning on having a fourth security officer in the schools. Now we're not. And we cut professional development and curriculum another $90,000+ and made $33,000 worth of cuts in athletics. So the total is the same. It's just that we
Restructured it.
put back into paraprofessionals what we could put back and took it from someplace else. Does that make sense?
A little.
Okay.
When specifically will we find out about our specific para?
So that will happen during IEP meetings that are going on right now with the child study team, and during IEP meetings that parents have with the child study team.
Well, they don't, I've already had my son's IEP
Right,
for
so
next year.
if there's going to be a change, I'm sure you know, we just can't make those changes without involving our parents. So if another conversation has to happen, and then another conversation will happen.
Okay. And what do you mean by restructuring the 43 positions?
Right, so the 43 per diem paraprofessionals are currently part-time. So when I say restructure, we're looking to increase the hourly rate and restructure the day and the hours of part-time.
Less
So
hours.
come September 1st, there will be no such thing as a per diem para. We're going to have two categories, full-time and part-time, and that's it.
And Mr. Giordano, you spoke about making the special education department bigger. I have thought of that myself. That's a great idea, and has anyone else really considered it? Because would you get about $100,000 if you have to send a child out? So if you had 10 come in, you'd get $1 million? Is that something that you're seriously going to consider?
We've been discussing this for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Now we have a new special at Mr. Bond, so he's working on it. It's not going to happen overnight,
Right, I
but
understand that.
it's something we've been talking about for a few years now.
Okay, well, I look forward to that.
And
Thank you.
let me just add to that. About 5 years ago, we had over 40 students out of district because we did not have the programs to provide services. That number is in the low 20s, so we've cut that number in half because of our ability to keep those students in district, because we have the special programs that we need to offer those students.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's his buddy, right? Come on. No, okay, I'm gonna sit you. Okay. You can't really talk. Hi. My name is Heather Gagliano, and this is Frankie Gagliano. We're on Lakeside. So, I'm really just gonna speak on being a grateful mother for the paras, because he truly is a full-time job. And when I'm not with him, they are his mother. And he has a lot of medical things going on. He's catheterized. He's got a colostomy, seizures, milk allergy. He's got growth issues. He's got an undiagnosed genetic condition that we're not so sure of yet. He's a huge candidate for out of district. And I stayed in district because I was very comfortable with the routine that was going on. My confidence is a little shaken now because of the consistency is not going to be there. I know that when there is, my son's para is Tammy Wall. She's been with him a couple of years, and when she is not present, and I have pretty much incidences that have happened medically that really could have killed him, from a substitute nurse, anything, even like the cleanliness of his colostomy. There's a lot of things that like people who just get pulled from a classroom that could, just come and sit with him as like a babysitter, they don't know him. he's just a child for that day. And I feel like these kids, they didn't ask to be like this. They, like, medically, mentally, behaviorally, in any way. And I feel like they are entitled to, you know, the proper education that, you know, they do deserve. Also, he started out from early intervention into, you know, the medical disabled preschool, and he just keeps going, and, you know, he's improved. Like, his progress is amazing. Like I said, he has an undiagnosed genetic, which there's no comparison. He's the only child like this. He wasn't supposed to walk. He wasn't supposed to do anything. With all the therapies and the consistency of the paras and everybody learning everything about him, and every child, I'm sure there's a big deal that's probably the worst thing, is the consistency change. And the other thing is seniority. I feel that that's like picking and choosing, and somebody who might have been here 20 plus years, you know, are they going to be able to chase them, do everything, and like be as active? And, you know, because like he's on his feet constantly, and he's, you know, lifted, picked up, you know, he might be nice. He's pretty aggressive with medication as well. He does have funky seizures that are considered focal. The bus also was just recently changed, which he is on a private bus. We're not 100% sure why, but he is on a private bus. He's not on Lacey. He goes to Lacey school, but he's not on a Lacey bus. That changed pretty, you know, different too. I really just want to not have anything change. I personally thought that his para was going to go with him, you know, through high school and, you know, be with him because she knows him so much. Because I feel like I said, the substitutes that come in here, it's never the same. It's never the same, ever the same. I just don't want a babysitter. Like, I want somebody who knows him and everybody else's kids, you know, a lot of kids can't do good with change, right? You want to say hi, Frankie? You want to say hi? Yeah? He's literally a full-time job. I don't know if you guys would be able to, like, do it. Like, maybe one day, but like you said, coming every single day and, you know, being with these kids. And like you said last time, some, you know, come home and cry. I mean, these people do that for a living. And, you know, it's a big deal to all the moms and dads and everything, right? Just to know that they're taken care of and everything is, you know, going to progress properly. Right? You want to say bye, Frankie? Can you say bye? Can you say bye to them? Good boy.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name's Cody Carpenter,
I'm Trinity Clark. And I'm Caitlin Freeman.
and we're here because we represent a larger community of student body and community members that have seen in the past 24 hours that a very, very close teacher of ours and a role model will be released from duties at the end of this year. He had announced it to us yesterday. He doesn't have a reason why. We don't have a reason why. We're curious as to why. He's not only an incredible teacher in the classroom, but he's also somebody who helps and advises clubs, is a role model to multiple people, is open to different and new ideas such as gender identity, which in the clubs the three of us participate in is very prevalent. And we'd like to know where this person who is not only just a teacher, not only somebody who teaches us lessons in the classroom, some that we don't even get from our own classrooms, but teaches us moral lessons and overall is someone we can look up to. The two of us here are seniors. I myself am a sophomore. I know that while they are leaving high school, it will be sad to see them go with him. And I know that in their case, and in many of the people who are with us, behind us, and myself, We not only want to see our teacher continue to be at Lacey Township High School, but also to help future generations of students, just as he's helped us. We're talking about Mr. Hayes, who is currently double certified in mathematics and special education, who assists with the drama club, who is currently running the brand new 2-month-old tabletop club, and was supposed to be starting with me the new esports club that Mr. Dowd approved barely a month ago. We haven't even had our first meeting yet. We
Want
are,
answers.
yeah, we're worried not only for future students, we're worried for our teacher. We are concerned for their well-being, for their security, because we believe that this teacher deserves better. We believe that without just cause, why would we put this incredible person's financial situation and occupational situation in jeopardy if he's contributed so much to the community in just the short years that he's been here? Of course, we mean no disrespect to you guys. I'm not even sure if you were aware of this letting go of prior to tonight, but we were made aware of it. He hadn't told anybody. He was planning to wait. We're glad he didn't, because we immediately all rose to his side and are happy to stand by him as not only a teacher, but as a role model and somebody we look up to greatly as family. So we're curious, what can we do to help Mr. Hayes with his security when he's done so many great things for this community as a school and as a whole?
So Cody, let me say this. I appreciate and applaud you and your peers to come up here. I know it's not easy to do. Unfortunately, it's a personnel matter, so I can't really discuss it. But when you ask what is it that you can do, I think you just did it.
Who can we speak to that can help? I've been recently asking a lot of teachers about situations like this, non-tenured teachers, what happens when something like this happens with a personnel issue, with a letting go of, without any formal reason. And they say that it's horrible, and that for some of them, which shall not be named for their own privacy, have experienced the horror of, how am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to keep a roof over my head? And the most concerning is, what will my students do? Will they miss me? Will they care? And from our position, every teacher, whether retiring, whether leaving due to people asking them to, they are missed, they are loved, and as somebody such in Mr. Hayes' situation, who's even just been recognized by the NHS for an appreciation award, we're concerned and we're confused and we're worried, not only for students like us, but also for Mr. Hayes himself. And while we know you can't discuss personnel issues publicly like this, who else are we to go to when administrative figures in the school district don't have answers within our own school?
So again, let me say this. If you're looking for specific answers about personnel, I can't answer them. But if you want to learn more about the process, then I'm going to come talk to me.
Right. We're just concerned, and we want to do everything we can to help.
Stop by whenever you'd like. You
Thank
know
you.
where my office is, right?
Yes, and to anybody in the community, school board, if you even agree, we've started taking signatures for anybody who would like to stand behind us, even if you cannot physically. So you can find any of us for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mike Ryan, President of the LTA. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Over the past year, it's reasonable to say this district has been on somewhat of a roller coaster with many ups and many downs. The current situation with the legislative funding changes have significantly hurt our district as well as others within the county. In previous forms of this proposed budget, there was devastating cuts made to a very essential group of our staff, the paraprofessionals. These cuts would have catastrophic effect on our students and staff. At previous meetings, you've heard from the LTA, many parents, members of the community pleading with the board to re-examine the budget and seek to make cuts elsewhere, where it wouldn't have such a crushing effect on our students and staff. In that original draft, the district would have looked to RIF all 116 of our paraprofessionals. Since that time, we sat with board members and district leadership and proposed alternative cuts. We are thankful that the board and district leaders were willing to meet with us and re-examine some other areas. While we're not completely happy with the revised cuts in the new version of the proposed budget, we are grateful that some of these changes were able to greatly reduce the number of paraprofessionals being RIF'd down from 116 down to 65. While we can never fully endorse any budget that would see any staff cuts, we do understand the unprecedented financial hardships that may face the district in the years to come. That's why I'm up here to say that we cannot stop looking to revise and change some of our practices moving forward. We need to work together with our members, district leaders, the board, the township committee, committee members, community members, parents, and our legislative leaders to bring about the much-needed funding changes. We cannot and will not allow ourselves to continue to find ourselves in these situations in the years to come. We are worth it, and the students of Lacey are worth it. Thank you.
Mike, I apologize. During my comments, I actually had it written down. I wanted to thank you guys. Like you said, we had meetings. Some of the changes are from our talks. Also, I'd like to thank the Township Committee. We've been talking to them, and they're looking for ways also to help us with our budget, so.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment?
Motion to
Going
close the
once?
floor?
Yeah. Oh, you got?
Oh, okay.
Good evening, everyone. Joanne Michaelkowski, I live on Inwood Place. I just have a real quick question. You'd made a comment, I think it was said that Regina noted that Toms River sent children to Trenton. What are we doing? I mean, honestly. I know that there was a letter put on the website, which I do appreciate, but there was no notification sent out to anyone other than the people that were at the meeting last month that that letter was going to be published. So is there anything else in the plans?
So let me just outline a little bit of some of the things we have done and some of the things we are in the process of doing and some of the things that we are going to do. So back in March, I talked about a lawsuit that we're involved in. I can't tell you how many meetings Mr. DeGeorge and I attended in Atlantic City with the Wiener Law Group to get the lawsuit started. Next week, some of the first court cases are going to take place as hearings. We have been in the offices of Senator Connors numerous times. I have met on more than one occasion with the presidents of all of the PTAs, Cs, Os in the district. We have had numerous meetings with Township Committee. We have posted information on our website on how to get in touch with our lawmakers. And we have several meetings scheduled with our PTA groups, with our Township Committee, and those will continue. So Ms. DeSenz is correct. Other districts are doing lots of things. There are lots of things that we have already done, and there are other things that we are going to be doing in the future. Every school district is different, but every school district is being impacted. And one thing that I said in April is that I implored everybody to do their homework on S2, because at the end of the day, it is pitting district against district and student against student. And That's just unacceptable. So we will continue to get that information out. I will continue to meet with all of these groups, and what I'm asking all of our PTAs is to get that information out to all of their constituents as well. We meet weekly with our administrative staff. The administrative staff goes back and talks to their staff. Many of our staff members are community members. So we're all open to ideas as well. So if anybody has any great ideas they wish to share with us, we'd be happy to hear them.
Wonderful. I appreciate all that stuff. It just seems like it seems like I've been at a couple of meetings where everyone is praising what Toms River is doing, but yet we're not doing anything on that same level. So that might be something we need to look at doing.
Excuse me, I sit on the New Jersey State School Board Association Legislative Committee. I go to Trenton on a regular basis. And last year, during 2018, when I was off the board, I was in touch with Mark Magyar, Senator Sweeney's chief of staff. So I have done things when I'm not even a board member. I have been doing a lot behind the scenes.
I give you a lot of credit because I know that you do.
I make the effort, but it is very difficult because other districts have more students, and they are just not looking at this rural Lacey district.
And one of the things I want to add that I failed to mention is Congressman Kim will be joining us on Monday with his constituents, and that's going to be about an hour and a half, and you can believe that we are definitely going to get the information out that we need to get out.
Thank you.
Not just about IDA,
Right.
but about these cuts.
Funding in general.
I did the same. I was with Regina in that November. We went out to meet with Sweeney. He didn't show. It was, who was it, McGuire?
Mark Magyar.
Magyar. And so we got him from both sides, and then we lost another $50,000 to next year. So I don't know if it always works out that well if we do it that way. So, I mean, yeah, we'll try. We have tried before, but I guess it doesn't always succeed.
Hi, Jessica Lotito again. I just had a quick question. Last meeting, I brought the possibility of doing a participation fee or a pay-to-play. Has that been considered at all to at least help alleviate some of the athletic costs?
Yeah, actually, that is one of the things that we discussed at length. It is very late in the school year to be implementing that type of program for September, but be rest assured that we are looking at other models. And it is a conversation that we're going to continue having. There are right now more questions than there are answers about participation fees, and we need to make sure that we have all of those questions answered before we implement a program of that magnitude that's going to affect so many of our families.
Well,
so we're
thank
not
you for
opposed to
considering
it. We are considering it.
Okay.
But to do it for September, it's very late in the school year.
Well, at least if we're in that direction, I think that's a positive.
We absolutely are.
And then I just had one other question. I know you mentioned to Dee when she said, when will we find out if our children's paras will be with them again? And you said at the IEP. We're not allowed to specify like specific paras in the IEP.
That is correct.
So for me, my son is already having anxiety about moving to the middle school next year. So when will I know if his same para that's been with him for 5 years will be with him for middle school? Because that's a big decision for me, whether I'm going to keep him in Mill Pond or move him to the middle school.
We're working on a very aggressive timeline.
Okay.
So I can't give you an exact answer, but I can tell you that our child study team is working day in, day out, under the direction of Mr. Bond and all of our supervisors.
So maybe by next school year? I mean, in the summer or by June?
Oh, absolutely, by next school year. There's no question.
Okay, so we'll know ahead of time in case we need to make any provisions.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mike Pulick, Niagara Court. Just wanted to thank you guys for kind of revisiting the budget. I had a few questions. I was hoping maybe you could kind of give me insight to. Mr. DeGeorge, probably primarily to you, I would suppose these would be fielded. On the extracurricular budget for total extracurricular activities, what was the percentage of reduction if we're looking at reducing the budget macro versus the percentage of reduction to special needs services in total?
Right. By extracurricular, you mean the combination of clubs, activities, and sports, the whole
Yeah, the whole thing, yep.
about $1.5 million. So in that regard, we reduced it, I would say, less than 1% at the $33,000 that we reduced it.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And so what were the cuts to special education as a percentage and dollar?
Cuts to special education, zero.
Well, I mean, the reduction in force is obviously closing the gap in the budget, right? So you're trying to reduce the spend
Right.
on
Right.
headcount, right?
Right. As far as that goes, you heard Dr. Clark say that it's kindergarten and preschool. So in positionally speaking, those positions don't necessarily attach themselves to special ed, but, you know, those things remain to be seen. But as far as, and you've heard us go through the list, as far as direct cuts to special education, and I've heard this, and I can't tell you why. I've heard people say, and Dr. Clark and I have spoken to people on the phone for over an hour who swear that we're reducing the special education budget, when I'm looking right at the budget, and it's increased by $720,000+. So I'm not confident where that comes from, but I'm looking right at it. The budget was published in the paper today, the tentative budget, and I don't see that, and we don't have any targeted plans to do that. That's the best I can do to answer.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to, I'm not understanding, so I want to make sure if I'm confused, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are confused, right? So thank you for dispelling that if it helps any. On the topic of looking outside the box, kind of thinking of different sources of revenue, I know you guys threw about a bunch of ideas and, you know, signs on buses and things like that. What about volunteerism? What about independent fundraising, charitable giving? Sponsorships for athletics, you know, Nike, Under Armour, all those kind of things. I mean, have those been considered? Have we reached out for grants, things like that? I mean, you know, there's a great example for that for Facebook. You know, Mark Zuckerberg gave $150 million to, you know, Newark School District, and remains to be seen what happened with it. But, you know, just those kind of things. I mean, so we know we're not going to get any more money right now as it stands, right? So how do we kind of make up that gap? Can we think about things like that?
Yeah, I'll answer
We
part
don't
of it if anybody
qualify
else
for a lot of
wants to
grants,
add.
unfortunately.
So, yeah, and when I said earlier that, you know, we're constantly looking at different sources of revenue, desperate times calls for desperate measures. And so, yeah, I just placed a call to, I don't know if you're familiar with the company Peloton. I'm hoping they're watching this right
I got the
now.
bike in my house. It's a good clothes rack, but it's expensive.
As do I. But, you know, they're becoming quite a big company. And if they can donate to HGTV, why not Lacey Township School District? So that's one of many examples. I'm sure we can come up with many. But, you know, I have different ideas running through my head. Perhaps what we need to put together is a committee of fundraising ideas and how that we can bring revenue into the district. And so when we start talking about strategic planning for next year, we have a board retreat scheduled for June 15th, where we're going to be talking about board goals, district goals, strategic planning. That is going to be a big prong of those discussions. And I think, Mr.
Right.
George, you want to add?
What I want to say that, and I don't want it to be overlooked, and I don't think anybody's intentionally doing that, but we have what I would consider to be a tremendous fundraising mechanism in our district already. It's called our PTOs, our PTAs, the parent groups at each school who do a tremendous job. And Dr. Clark and I just met with the presidents last night, right, wasn't it? Or some night this week. An awesome job of raising funds and donating to specific projects, which takes the burden off of district to some extent. So if they're here, thank you again. If you see them, thank them, because they do an outstanding job of helping us raise funds to the extent that they can. I just wanted to give them credit.
Thanks, yep. And is there any, should we just email you guys ideas? I mean, you know, is it as simple as that? I mean, I've heard a number of times people say, oh, I'll contribute more in my taxes, right? But we know we can't do that right off the bat for
Would you like to
obvious
head the
reasons.
committee?
I would love it, sure.
Yeah, I'll get your phone number
All
on the
right,
way
no
out.
problem.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
On June 3rd, the Lacey Education Foundation is having their second quarterly meeting, and we're hoping to get some alternative revenue sources underway, but I've been looking at a lot of grants, and there's quite a few we don't qualify for yet.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I thought we were done.
Hi, I'm Amanda Cranford. Can you hear me? No? I don't know. Can you turn that on? Better? Yeah. I'm Amanda Cranford on Lakeside Drive South. So I came up here intending to say one thing, but I just want to address something that Mr. DeGiorgio just said, that you are not planning any cuts to the special education program? I mean, because I have the budget. I'm happy to go through it if everyone wants to sit here, but, I mean, that's just not an accurate statement. I'm not sure.
I'm going
what-
to stop you. I'm going to stop you. So you and I and Dr. Clark had a telephone conversation for
We
over
did?
an hour where we listened to everything you had to say. We tried to explain everything we could explain to you. And I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the advertised budget that's in the paper today, but it says what I said before. Special education instruction, increase $720,125. So where you're getting your information, I can't say, but it's not our budget. Or
I
if
mean,
it's-
it is your
Yeah,
budget.
but if we've explained this to you, you're not reading it quite right.
Are you, is that this is the road that we're going down?
Yeah, actually,
mean,
yes, I guess so, because,
Okay.
because
That's
we've
okay.
tried to explain it to you, and we're happy to have another conversation with you, but I can't argue with the numbers. I can tell you that we are looking at a slight, now, you have to understand the difference between a cut, right, and a budget variance. I'm not clear that you have that distinction down. A variance means natural increase or decrease from year to year to year in a category. It's impossible, really, for it to remain the same from year to year to year. That's not the way budgeting works. It's not very static. It's very, very lucid, right? So you'll see plenty of variances in the 100 categories underneath special education. They're not cuts, they're variances. So there are no specific budget cuts where the Board of Education said, we are going to cut a special education teacher, we are going to cut a special education program. There are no such cuts, if I can go ahead and make that distinction.
But there are some massive variances in your budget then.
So again,
I mean, over
so we can.
$76,000, $48,000, $150,000, $109,000, $73,000, I mean, those aren't, we're not talking about slight differences year to year.
Right,
These
and
are
I'm not
massive
saying that
differences.
sometimes they are massive. We've spoke, again, for almost an hour about the fact that in special education, money follows the students, right? So sometimes, I'm sorry?
I said I understand.
Sure,
that.
of course. So if there are 1 year 10 students in a specific program, next year some of those students may graduate out. Obviously, the budget related to that program is going to decrease. Our special education director is excellent, and he knows exactly how to project and plan the best he can given the information that he has. But at no point in time, and I'm doing a very bad job of making this clear, he has not requested any cuts in programs. He has not requested any cuts in services. If the population of special education students decreases, obviously there's going to be a related decrease in related services. That's just the way it works. If there's a decrease in the number of out-of-district placements, there's obviously going to be a decrease in the amount of out-of-district tuition that we pay. And the converse is true. Increases in students, increases in out-of-district placements. They're variances.
I understand how variances
Right,
work.
so we
Your
try
tone
to,
is extremely condescending, which is not sitting very well, to be honest with you. So
Well-
we can take that up. I mean, perhaps you don't realize you, in fact, know nothing about me or my background, and you are speaking to me as if I am an uneducated child who happened to wander in here and doesn't understand what's going on. So
that's
we
not
can-
the intent,
We can
and-
move on from that, but I'm just telling
Sure.
you. And it's not very well received.
again, we invite you to come in, and we've done this several times, Dr. Clark and I. Come on in, and we will go through every single line item in every single budget that you want to go through.
Understand.
So that's the best I can do.
Okay, so the district is, in the revised budget, is planning, you said less than 1% cut to sports and extracurriculars, correct? So I understand that the position of the district, it's been made very clear. I'm well aware that you feel that athletics and extracurriculars are essential to education. The fact still remains that the law does not support your position. It just doesn't. So that being said, I am not stating, nor have I ever stated, and I want to make that very clear because there seems to be some confusion about that these programs should be cut in their entirety. I've never said that. However, there are other options that can and should be explored to fund these programs. There are many districts across the nation who have implemented the use of sponsors. They have taken on naming rights donors to fund athletics when they're faced with dwindling budgets such as ours. They have formed committees of volunteers who have organized high-profile fundraisers. They've created an online presence as a way to extend their channels of donation acceptance. Schools have raised hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars in single districts doing these things. So the point here is that there are really many options available to fund athletics and to fund extracurriculars. These programs could be successfully supported without placing such a large burden on the budget. In its current form, the budget indicates an allocation exceeding more than $1.6 million for athletics and extracurriculars, save for the $33,000 cut. I had asked for a breakdown of additional associated costs for these programs. Those included utilities, maintenance, security, custodial, uniforms, transportation, insurance. The response that I received during our phone call was that my inquiry was really extensive, and that those figures were not actually provided in the manner that they should have been. So if I were to take a guess, an educated guess, I would conclude that those additional costs account for, if we include those additional costs, that the budget for these programs most likely totals closer to, if not exceeds, $2 million. So given the current situation, that is a significant sum of money to spend on extras. So as parents of special education students, we are not asking you for extras. We are simply asking for the basics. One of those things that many people are asking for is consistency and qualified individuals to give our children the support that they need. To simply say that you care about all of the kids in the district equally and that you put the children first, it doesn't really carry weight, because there needs to be significant action behind those words. Otherwise, they're just worthless words. They literally mean nothing. And so while I appreciate the changes that you've made, and it's a step in the right direction, we are still prioritizing things that are non-mandated and non-essential over things that are in fact essential to providing an education. And we can agree to disagree on that. So for the parents who are here, it is very important that you do your research, that you know your rights. There are laws in place to protect your child. If you are unsure of something, please seek out an advocate. There are many who are willing to consult with you free of charge. And for the board The last thing I have to say is that I would respectfully advise you to seriously explore alternative funding options for non-essentials given the cuts that are headed our way for the coming years. We all agree that it's not going to be good and the future is looking bleak. So the worst case scenario for the future of our kids and this district would be for the board to continue cutting staff and education essential programs. Larger class sizes, lack of supplies, and lack of support could end up paving the path for a charter school to move into the area. I have conducted extensive research in a very professional capacity regarding the damage that charter schools cause in communities such as ours. And if you think that this situation is bad now, you really don't have any idea how bad it can be and how damaging to a school district and a community can be. However, in the meantime, the budget allocations really should be focused on the classrooms and not on the fields. The future of our children and our district are really depending on you.
Can I ask you a quick question? And this, I'm just curious. I told you I'm a chatterer. Who got cut from the child study team?
In terms of specific names,
You said the child study team was cut. That's the first line. And listen, I don't want to get in an argument. I'm just curious what the answer is, because I'm being told no one was cut from the child study team. These questions, okay, and I talked to Mr. George and Dr. Clark. I would love you to come in with the administration, Mr. Bond, Mr. Giordano, myself, go over some of the things that you mentioned in your little.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's discuss it. Because, like I said, the first line I saw was cut the child study team. I asked a couple of days ago, I asked again today, has anybody been cut from the child study team?
Nope.
And they said no. So,
No individual, so there are not cuts to child studies at all?
Not at all.
No.
so it's, like I said, instead of discussing on chatter, why
Yeah,
don't you come discuss it with us first, this way the facts are.
Well, I've tried to discuss it with you, however, it involves not just the people in the room, it actually involves the entire community. I have spent a lot of time, my own time, doing a lot of research and doing a lot of work. There are a lot of people who have no idea what is going on, that have no idea what the situation is, they have no idea what their rights are. And so, yes, I am allowed, I believe, to discuss it in a public forum.
That's
So
fine.
if
You could
that-
discuss in a public
if that-
forum.
if
I'd
that-
rather have the right facts.
Factual
And if you want,
information.
you have studies and stuff like that, sit with the finance.
absolutely.
I'm part of the finance committee, there's 3 of us.
Yep.
Come sit with the finance committee. If you want the administration there, like I said, we talked to the LTEA, their team, we talked to the committee people, we talked to people from the community. You're more than welcome to come sit. But when I see something like that, right off the bat, first line, child study team's cut. First question I asked, who's cut from the child study team? Nobody.
Did I state that the child study team was cut? I didn't
Read
say that.
read the first line of your
I
chatter.
stated that there were reductions in the child study team, but did I post that there was personnel cut?
You said there was.
Are we really having an argument about?
I'm not arguing about, what I'm trying to say is, before you post it, what I'm trying to say is before you post some things, come talk to us. This way, I don't care what you post, that's your right to
I did talk to you
post.
and my questions were not answered.
You spoke to me?
To you as the board.
Cuts to following special education areas. First thing, child study teams.
So you're asking me for a specific personnel name?
Well, if I read that
I
child study team was.
I think the
cut,
point he's trying to make is, it's pretty simple, and I've said this numerous times again, over and over and over. It's a complicated document that you're looking at, and I'm certain that you have questions. I hear that you've spent time with both Mr. DeGeorge and Dr. Clark. When misinformation is put up online, And I'm not saying that you directly put misinformation. Maybe you put your interpretation of the information that you have in front of you, and that's okay. But what that breeds is a bunch of, everybody gets scared, they get paranoid, they're crazy, they don't understand what's going on, they hear one thing, they see one thing, and I think the point that Mr. Morandi is trying to make is, yes, your freedom of speech, you can put up there whatever you want, but I would try to put as much factual information up there as possible. And what he's saying is, come in and sit with us, sit down at a finance meeting, sit down at a budget meeting, sit down and go through the questions that you have so that you can, if you want to post it, go up and post the information that you were given in our meeting.
So you're telling me that the $19,500 and some dollar is listed under the child study team, that's just a differential in cost?
It's definitely not personnel.
It's not a personnel, it's not a person.
I never said, did I say that it was personnel in that post?
Well, it says
It
child
it
study.
said, in the area of child study, that encompasses a lot. Did I ever say?
All I'm saying is before you talk.
Yeah, you know what, hold on, Nick. I'm just gonna, because we'll go on all night.
I never said that.
We'll go on all night, and I certainly value my
Let's,
time and don't
close the
want to go
floor
all
to
night.
public
Is there
comment.
anybody else that wants to get up and speak? With that, I'll make a motion to close the floor for public comment.
Second.
All right, now we'll go on to business. Number 7, resolution approving the elimination of paraprofessional positions for the 2019-2020 school year.
Motion.
Move. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr.
Sorry.
Horvath? Yes. Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs? Mrs. Downey? Mr. Morandi?
Yes.
Mr. Giordano?
Yes. Number 8, submission of the 2019-2020 capital project to the New Jersey Department of Education. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Horvath? Yes. Mrs. DeSenza?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs? Mrs. Downey? Mr. Morandi? Mr. Giordano?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Moved. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, by the way. Thank you.